So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the next series in our webinars. Today I'm going to be covering off implementing business change. We're seeing quite a lot of changes in businesses at the moment due to the impact of coronavirus. So just felt this was a topical issue to go through with you all today. Before we get started, hopefully I have muted all microphones and just ask that you do keep your microphones muted throughout the session, just to help keep background noise to a minimum for those that are listening. So I wanted to kick off by introducing myself for those that are new to our webinars. So this is me, I'm Leanne Cox, a HR business partner for Clover HR. I've got 9 years HR generalist experience and have worked in a number of small businesses as part of my career, which has mainly been in the IT industry. But now I do look after a number of different clients as part of Clover HR, ranging from different sectors to things such as farming through to retail. So that's just a little bit about me. In terms of Clover HR, this is our team. We are your trusted people advisors, but also much more, as we have specialists within our team in recruitment, learning and development, coaching and health and safety. And also more recently, we now offer CV writing to individuals and businesses that are looking to support employees who are seeking alternative work. So that's an exciting new branch to Clover HR's offering. At the end of today's webinar, I will provide you with my contact details for you to send me any questions or queries you do have. So if you could just hold on to these until the end, that would be great. So just looking at what we will be covering today, so looking at the different types of change, the need for business change, how best to manage change, issues and resistance which can arise when implementing change, looking at creating a change management plan, and also looking at managing change effectively. So first of all, let's kick off by understanding what we mean by change management. So change management is about the way and processes businesses use to deal with a change. It requires businesses to adopt strategies, structures and procedures and technologies to cope with the change. There are 3 types of change which commonly occur in business. These are developmental, transitional and transformational. And we will move on to have a look at each of these a little further. But before we do, I think it's important to recognise that different kinds of change will require different strategies and plans to gain buy-in and the engagement of employees. So in its simplest form, developmental change occurs when you recognise the need to make improvements to an existing situation due to business growth or development. So this might include improving existing skills within the team, developing processes, or improving performance standards. Some examples which you can see on the screen include increasing sales or quality of sales, interpersonal communication training, simple work process improvements, team development and problem solving. So developmental change is about continuous improvement for businesses and is a type of change all businesses face and must handle correctly. A common example I come across at Clover HR is the need for HR policies and procedures to be compliant, particularly with the ever-changing updates to employment law, and also to ensure they remain fit for business purpose. I know many small businesses which have grown from startup companies and have family members supporting the business and have now grown to a size where HR input, support and advice is required to help continue to ensure compliance and drive the business forward. So transitional change, this happens when you recognise the need to implement a completely new course of action. Many businesses are currently faced with making transitional changes to their business in response to coronavirus, and the measures the UK is taking to try and control the virus, particularly around like lockdown, social distancing, implementing one-way systems, and also things such as increased hand washing facilities, as just some examples. Some typical examples which are on the screen include reorganisations, creation of new products or services that replace old ones, and IT implementation that do not require a significant shift in organisational culture or behaviour. At the moment, Clover HR are supporting a number of clients through transitional change by way of reorganising business structures in response to current circumstances with coronavirus, which has included redundancy programmes. Also in the current climate, businesses are required to implement new policies and procedures, particularly on things such as the COVID risk assessments. And again, Clover HR has been supporting many businesses with these throughout the pandemic. So looking at transformational change, this isn't necessarily something that you control. It's more about businesses recognising the need for change and adapting it in order to survive. These changes are generally in response to extreme or unexpected market changes. And as a result, the business strategy that needs to be completely reshaped in order for the business to survive. So some classic examples include implementing major strategic and cultural changes, adopting radical different technologies, making significant operational changes to meet new supply and demand, and reforming products and service offering to meet unexpected competition and dramatic reduction in revenue. So if we just look at McDonald's as an excellent example of transformational change, back in 2006, McDonald's were faced with a severe backlash from multiple health activists and critics, just due to the increases in obesity and also an awareness of what goes into our food and what this means for our bodies. The backlash resulted in huge losses for McDonald's. So the CEO decided to tackle the criticism by adding healthier items to the menu, so things such as the carrot sticks, salad options, and wraps. Furthermore, he improved the customer service methodology. The result of the transformation was a friendlier environment and an outlook which prevented McDonald's from collapsing. And today, I've had a look, and their daily customer traffic globally is more than the population of the UK, and is one of the leading fast food brands. So looking at why businesses need to change, change is constant in many businesses and is driven by different forces, including customers, markets, and technology. The effects of not managing change effectively can be devastating and long-lasting. So it's important that businesses understand the issues and equip themselves with techniques to support change management initiatives. There are many different drivers of organisational change. These can include growth opportunities, especially new markets, economic downturns and challenging trading conditions. Again, this is one which I'm sure many businesses will be faced with in order to survive this year. Shifts in strategic objectives, technological developments, competitive pressures, including new entrants, mergers and acquisitions, customer or supplier pressure, learning new organisational behaviours and skills, and government legislation and initiatives. Again, one which I'm sure we're all very familiar with with the current situation and numerous changes all businesses have made this year in response to government legislation and guidelines relating to COVID-19. Businesses generally need to introduce and manage change to achieve organisational objectives whilst maintaining commitments to employees and at the same time ensuring that business is continuing as usual. While each change situation will be unique, there are still some common themes that will help give the change process the best chance of success. So the importance of managing change. Research by the CIPD shows that fewer than 60% of business reorganisations met their stated objectives, which was usually bottom line improvement. So why is it important for businesses to manage change? Well, a lot of time and effort goes into any change initiative and requires input from numerous people across the business. So not allowing the change to take shape or failure to complete a change programme can result in loss of market position, removal of senior management, loss of stakeholder credibility, loss of key employees, and a reduction in employee engagement and motivation. A good example here is Blockbuster. So who remembers Blockbuster for your DVD, video and game rentals? Back in 2004, Blockbuster was bringing in around £6 billion in revenue, and Netflix was trailing behind as just a little startup company. And now today, Netflix is worth more than 28 billion. Blockbuster are ancient history. So looking at what went wrong for Blockbuster, well, their leadership failed to recognise how quickly the video rental market was changing. A few years earlier, the Netflix COO actually proposed that the two companies work together, with Netflix running Blockbuster's brand online and Blockbuster promoting Netflix in its stores. Blockbuster refused, and instead of taking the cue from Netflix and embracing the change in the way customers preferred to watch movies, which was streaming them from the comfort of their own living room instead of renting, Blockbuster focused on maintaining the status quo, which meant doubling down on their physical stores and inventory. And by the time Blockbuster had caught up, it was too late. And like I said, they are now ancient history. So just an example of where an organisation has failed to recognise change, which as a result meant loss of market position and the company collapsing. So now moving on to look at some key issues which can have a negative impact on effective change management. So first of all, individual change initiatives which are not being actioned or looked at as part of a wider change plan. So for example, a change that considers a new structure but is failing to establish the need to introduce new systems or processes to support the structure. Lack of effective project management, which can lead to timings being missed and affecting the desired outcomes. Insufficient training for employees, so things like project management, change management and leadership skills. These can all have an impact on the effectiveness of a change initiative. Poor communication, which can lead to greater employee resistance and low engagement in the change initiative. Change initiatives can also be overmanaged with too much energy being spent on project managing and too little on making the change actually happen. And finally, a lack of effective leadership can be an obstruction. So now moving on to look at resistance. Resistance to change can be defined as an individual or group engaging in acts to block or disrupt an attempt to introduce change. I think it's important to note that resistance is not necessarily negative, as it may be a clear signal that the change initiative just requires some rethinking. Resistance itself can take many different forms, so from subtle undermining of the change initiatives to withholding information or even more extreme measures such as strike action. There are two broad types of resistance. So it could be resistance to the content of change. So an example would be a specific change in technology, or say the introduction of a particular reward system. And then resistance to the process of change. So this concerns the way the change is introduced rather than the object of change itself. So an example, a management restructure of jobs without prior consultation to the affected employees. By understanding some of the most common reasons people object change, gives businesses the opportunity to plan and address these factors as part of their change strategy. It's not always possible to be aware of all sources of resistance, but expecting that there will be resistance and being prepared to manage it is a proactive step that businesses can take. So just some of the reasons for resistance include loss of control, the shock of something which is new, uncertainty, inconvenience, the threat to status, and competence fears. I'm sure many of us have been in a position where change has happened and we have felt some or all of the above in the workplace or in our personal lives. I think it's important not to assume that resistance is negative, but try and diagnose the cause of employee resistance to help address the issue. Research undertaken by the COPD actually suggests that resistance to change may in fact be a deep-rooted threat response in humans, and something which is designed to keep us safe. So again, it's just something else to bear in mind when looking at why employees are resisting change. I'm sure some of you will be familiar with the change curve diagram, and I just wanted to share it again as part of today's session, as it gives a good overview and representation of different stages people go through when faced with a change. Some individuals and circumstances will mean that time, which is indicated at the bottom of the graph, will pass through stages more quickly than others. And I'm sure we can all relate to this in recent changes we've all had to make in our lives due to coronavirus, and many of us will still be on the change path. So myself, for example, the initial shock of a virus outbreak from China was relatively quickly acknowledged, but then I spent a long time in denial, believing that it was a China problem and something which wasn't going to be affecting me or my way of living, albeit there was an increase in the amount of cases growing globally. Frustration hit for me when we went into lockdown, and I had to accept that things were going to be different, and many things that I had planned for this year were no longer going to be taking place. Depression was then a fairly quick step for myself, just down to my own personality and the support I have around me. And I moved quite quickly into experimenting with the new restrictions under lockdown, which meant trialling new daytime routines to work around my family and work commitments, which has then moved me through to decision, by where I had accepted the changes and found new ways to live. And now finally moved into integration, by where things such as social distancing sadly are a normal way of life. And as restrictions are being lifted, I'm still taking precautions and measures to stay safe whilst out in public, with the change now integrated into my way of life. So that's just my own example in regards to coronavirus, and hopefully the graph gives you an understanding of the stages individuals will go through when faced with a change. And I think it's important to remember that individuals will be at different stages at different times. So now moving on to look at developing a change plan. As part of a change plan, we recommend you covering off the following elements. So first of all, think about what will change. So here you should be looking for a brief explanation of the proposed changes, and make sure to address not only what will change, but also who will be affected and when it will take place. The reason for change, so here try to be specific, explain exactly why the change is necessary, and you should also address anticipated concerns and resistance to help drive home the why for the change. Intended outcomes, so consider results, so things such as labour costs, improved employee experience, and increased productivity, just depending on the change situation. Estimate duration, so provide an estimate of how much time will be required to implement and complete the proposed change. I've seen many change management plans developed on Excel to show duration and start times, different elements of the change programme, and these can be easily updated in line with progress and any complications which come into play. Estimate costs. So here you're looking to calculate the estimated total costs associated with the change. Some costs you might want to consider include labour, additional staffing, technology, and maybe even outside consultation. And then it's important to consider any additional factors and other areas of business which may be affected by the change. So an example would be if the proposed change involves hiring new talent, the organisational chart will need to be updated. So now moving on to look at how businesses can manage change effectively. I think it's fair to say that change is complex and there isn't a single solution to managing it. However, there are a number of key areas businesses can focus on. The techniques I've outlined here can be applied to a variety of change management scenarios to enhance the effectiveness of a change programme. So firstly, designing the transformation. So here you're really looking at identifying aspects within a business that may hinder a change. In doing so, businesses should then look at initiatives to change the business environment and design change programs in a way that overcomes obstacles and enables the desired transformation to take place. Aligning strategy and culture. It is vital for strategic and cultural aspirations to be aligned. So as an example, if the business is implementing new strategic goals, they must also identify a new supportive and goal consistent culture in terms of beliefs and behaviours amongst employees. Develop techniques for building understanding. So one technique is for the change vision to be ambitious and then also to be presented in an ambiguous way. The intention here is to encourage individuals to actively question and attempt to make sense of the situation. Another technique is using narrative, storytelling and conversations, which can be used to make the content and implications of the new strategy easy to understand and allow individuals to translate the change into meaningful actions for themselves. And another technique for building understanding is physical representation, metaphors and play. So here you're looking at the use of objects, metaphors, symbols and pictures to help engage individuals and again enable them to translate the change into meaningful actions for themselves. And then it's about managing the transformation, so relational leadership. So here you may have trade unions or employee rep groups where change is achieved through negotiation and social interactions. Building trust, which is vital really for any change initiative to thrive. Voice, dialogue and rethinking resistance. So this is about giving employees a voice as part of the change programme, allowing them to raise concerns and put alternative suggestions forward to be considered by the business. And finally, emotion, energy and momentum. Change is often an emotional process and it's vital that those managing the change maintain levels of energy and momentum throughout the change process and have emotional awareness. And that's it for today's session on implementing business change. We have covered off a lot, so I just wanted to end by reviewing some of the key points for businesses to remember. Business change need to change in order to adapt and survive. Managing change effectively is important to reduce any negative impact and make the time and effort to implement change beneficial. There are 3 types of change which occur in business: developmental, transitional and transformational, and it's important for these to be recognised and managed accordingly. Resistance to change is natural, and therefore businesses should try to support employees through a period of change. And change can be complex. There is no single solution to managing it, but there are techniques businesses can develop to make change effective. So thank you for attending today's webinar and your attention. Like I said, we have covered off a lot of content, but I hope you have found this session useful. Do let me know if you have any feedback or comments, or if there is anything you'd like to see in future webinars. Let me know and we will try to accommodate where we can. We will be posting this webinar on our website and YouTube channel, so feel free to share with others or watch again. As I said at the beginning, here are my contact details, so if you did have any questions or queries, please do get in touch. My email address is on there and also my mobile number. And then before you go, I just wanted to draw your attention to other recent webinars which we have run and are available on our website, using the link below, or if you go onto our website and in about and then educational resources, you'll find them all in there. And then also just our upcoming webinars for the rest of this month. So we've got What is Coaching, which is on the 16th at 11 AM, and Promoting Inclusion in the Workplace on the 30th of July at 10 AM. If you'd like to register, just drop me an email and I can send the links over to you. And then finally, following today's session, a very quick survey will appear on your screen, and I'd be very grateful if you could take the time to complete it for our feedback. We do appreciate your time and support in doing this. So that is it for today's session. Thank you again for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again on our future webinars.